When you pass input arguments while invoking a function, there are some subtle details that you need to keep in mind based on the kind of argument that you're passing in. And that's exactly what we'll study here in this demo, how we pass arguments by value. I'm going to define and assign values to four variables here: salary, expense, name, and interest rate. I'm now going to define a function called print savings details, which take in no input argument. So all of the references to the variables name, salary, expense, and interest rate refer to global variables. There are no local variables with the same name. This function is fairly straightforward. All it does is prints out the various bits of information. Invoke this function, specify no input arguments, and the details are printed to screen. Now let's redefine the print savings details function. This time we'll have this function take in four input arguments: name, salary, expense, and interest rate. The function body prints out this information as it did before, but this time the references to all of the variable names are to the local variables that are passed in as input arguments, not to the global variables. Let's go ahead and invoke print savings details and pass in name, salary, expense, and interest rate. These are the global variables that we pass in as an input to this function. And all of the information is printed to screen. Everything that we've seen so far, you're familiar with. There's nothing really surprising here. I'm now going to invoke print savings details with a few different values. This is for Julie. Her salary is 10,000, expense 2,000, interest rate 0.02. And Julie's information is what is printed out to screen from within our function. Now, from within our function, I'm going to try and change the value of a variable passed in. Print savings details, name, salary, expense, and interest rate, and observe that I've incremented the expense by $100. Within the function body, I have said expense is equal to expense plus 100. I've changed the value assigned to the expense variable. Now, when you invoke print savings detail, you'll see that the expenses have gone up, which is why our savings have fallen a bit. But outside of the scope of the function, if you print out the current values for name, salary, expense, and interest rate, you'll find that the changes that we made to the expense variable are not reflected outside of the function. The expense here is still 200. It has not been incremented to 300. 200 was the original value that we assigned to the global expense variable. Changes that we make to a numeric variable within a function are not reflected outside of that function. This is what it means when we say that the argument expense has been passed into the function by value. I'm going to redefine the print savings details function.